Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Easton Park Talk. I'm here with our neighbor, Jess Worthington, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist. On the episode, we talk about what she does, which is marriage and family therapy.
Yep.
With her partner, who is also excellent at what she does. And they wrote a book together, which is called
How to Have the Best Fight of Your Life.
And You Need to Be Fighting. It's healthy.
Yep.
It's okay. As long as it's done in a respectful and healthy way.
Yep.
And if you're not, then people can reach out to Jess and her partner, and you can help families and couples through a myriad of things.
Yep.
And we talk about it in the episode. We also talk about a little bit what it's like to own a business as a therapist and next steps and other things that are coming out in Easton Park for people. Even though you're not working with people in Easton Park right now, there are going to be tools that people in Easton Park can use.
Yes.
Really excited. So we're going to jump right in.
All right. Sounds good.
I think it was on my MySpace where you'd be like, I'm in a relationship, or
Oh,
it's,
yeah,
I
I
think
do.
you could still do like it's complicated or whatever, which is like a good segue into what you do.
Yep.
So what do you do? Tell me.
Yeah. So does it matter where I look?
Anywhere you want.
Anywhere you want? Okay. Yeah. So I'm a couples therapist, and I've been doing this for about 15 years now.
Okay.
And so I've been in private practice for 12 of those years. And then the last couple of years, I actually transitioned my business to doing what's called Austin Couples Concierge.
Okay.
So I have a business partner who's also a therapist, and she and I have gotten together, and it has been so much fun to work with her.
Cool.
Her name is Lindley Gentile. And we basically when we work with a couple, you basically hire us for these 2 or 3 month intensives. And, we provide this full wraparound support for folks. So she meets with them individually. I meet with them as a couple. And then you have access to us between sessions, but we'll really walk you through here are all the basics that your relationship needs in order to be on really solid ground.
Okay.
And so we walk people through boundaries, emotions, how to fight, how to deal with issues around sex, how to deal with issues around finances, and then anything that is particular to them too, sure, is a part of the package.
Of course.
But you're really hiring us to help you solve a problem of how do you kind of right the ship so that you can go on your merry way and you don't need us anymore.
Yeah.
And you've got all the tools in your tool belt to deal with whatever.
I love that.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
I love that they meet with your partner separately. So
Correct.
and then they meet with you as a couple.
Correct.
How, that's kind of unique, right? Because I've gone to my same therapist for 10 years. I love her. Maybe 11 years now. She's excellent. It's so nice to find a therapist that you just vibe with. And I got really lucky. But if we've ever had issues or wanted to talk to a therapist or something, Carrie's well, as long I can meet with one of you and both of you, which just seems, and it's that just seems kind of unfair. And I don't know, I'm sure that clinically y'all can separate the difference and it's not as close to you guys, but I've seen Carrie for 10 years. I just would have a really hard time with her being unbiased.
Oh, it would be impossible
she's a
to
human.
be unbiased. Yes, she's a person, therapists, we walk alongside people, especially when we have longer term relationships. There is no way it would work to do couples therapy in that sense.
Yeah.
And I hear people do that a lot anyways, okay, we'll kind of ad hoc have them come. And 9 times out of 10, the feedback is it's not actually that helpful because it's impossible for them to be unbiased, but also for the new partner coming in to feel they've got any kind of footing with this person.
Right. Well, because they don't.
They don't, right? And so the thing that I really like about what we do is she gets a really good sense of what's happening for each of them individually on the back end. And then she and I are in constant communication about here's what's going on for them, here's what's going on for them, and here's where we need to take them together as a couple.
Oh, cool.
And so it's a really great, it's almost like a wraparound service where you get this full, you really feel like these two people are holding you in a relationship through some usually pretty challenging times.
Sure.
And so it's very it's the highest level of support and care. And also it's fun in part because it's really efficient.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of times people will be in therapy. Individual therapy, I think, is a little bit different. You can have longer term relationships with people, but when you're working with couples, I don't want to see people for a long period of time. Right. I want them to figure their stuff out and then go enjoy their life.
Yeah.
Right. And then sometimes they get caught up on stuff and then they circle back and that's kind of a part of it. Right. But the point is that you get all the tools and skills you need so that you can go and just enjoy your life.
Yeah. And then use the skills when minor problems arise to work through based on what they've learned with you and with your partner, probably individually. Does she keep, if they want to, will she keep meeting with people individually?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, sometimes that happens. But really, like, we like to have it as like we are like kind of a full service support for like these couple of months, and then we'll kind of meet with you ad hoc, like as time goes on, if you need it. But she doesn't usually take them on as like a long-term client, mostly just because, like, we're working with couples in this kind of concierge capacity all the time, and so we don't really have the space to do something outside of that.
Yeah. So therapy's, I would assume, heavy, and I think it's okay. So what I'm trying to say is, like, so we own an HR company, and people don't call their human resource department because they're having a great day or there's right, like people aren't going to. Maybe some people do, but I would assume a very small percentage of people are going to therapy because life is so good and they just want to have an unbiased person to chat about how great life is. Maybe they do, and good on them. But like, how do you deal with taking heavy problems all day, like you and your partner? What's your kind of strategy for getting through that?
That's an amazing question. I play a lot of pickleball and I love it.
Okay.
So playing a lot of pickleball. And honestly, like, the thing I have noticed too is that working with a partner so closely as like a colleague is a huge piece of the lift, where it's like you're not in it alone. You have another person and you're like carrying this couple together. And that inherently feels like lighter and easier. Yeah. My husband is very funny, so that helps. Okay. And honestly, I think it gets easier the longer you're in this profession.
Sure.
So I remember, like, early on in my work, it being really like weighing on me really, really heavily. Sure. And I think just like as time goes on, like any job, you get better at it. You become like a little bit more accustomed to whatever's happening. And so I think just like over time, it gets easier. Like, I actually have this funny thing that I know happens in my mind, where like when I'm meeting with a client, it's almost like a like mental filing cabinet that I have. And like when I meet with them, I'm fully there. Everything is present. Like, everything I need to know is available. And then I'm not meeting with them. Like, you know, we close the session out. I go on for my weekend. If there's ever a time where I run into them, like in real life, right? Because like I only see people virtually, right? So like, if I run into them in the wild, so to speak, right, it actually like takes me a couple seconds to like connect like who this person is. And for like a good 5 seconds, I have no recollection of anything they have ever said to me ever, right? And then like the filing cabinet opens and I'm like, oh, John, I remember you. Like, of course I know you. We've talked all week, you know, but it's like I am able to like close the filing cabinet and like go on with my life, which I think that is a skill that I have built over time. Sure. And it's like probably saved my life.
Yeah. No, it's got to be,
or at least saved my ability to stay in this career.
Yeah. I mean, it's just got to be so heavy, and I'm sure it is a skill that you would build, right? Like, we get, especially as entrepreneurs, we get so drawn into our work, and it's really hard to turn off. But in your case, like, I would imagine too that there's like ebbs and flows. Like, you're working with a client through your concierge service that like you got them through or you helped them get through something, and it's like feels lighter and feels good. And at the same, and then the next session might be starting where a couple might be in a really bad spot, and so it's kind of this like, I'm sure that there's a level of balance of not canceling out the feelings, but like where you're like, okay, we can move people through into positivity, or move them through to a different decision. Like, I don't think that like, if a couple decides they can't be together, I don't know that that's like a failure. Yeah, absolutely. It just is a different outcome than anyone.
Sometimes it's a raging success for them to like get to that place and then move on.
And then move on and go be happy with themselves. Like, but I'm sure that like, it's got to be a bit of like a roller coaster too, of like, we just ended this like session and everything's good, and now we're in the middle of this one that's not going well, and or you know, they divorced and everybody's happy. Like, it's just got to be a lot. Yeah, no, it definitely can be a roller coaster for sure. But I do think the like hope and excitement, and even like being able to, I mean, like, I have so much confidence in this concierge program that we're doing. It has been so fun, and we've been able to be like
get people to like such different places that like there's something really motivating and exciting about that. And I think that kind of, it infuses so much hope that like you can move, like no matter where you're at, you can get to a much better place.
Yeah.
And a lot of times like it's not actually, like I say this a lot, like a lot of times it's not a heart issue, like it's a skills issue, right? And that's easy. Like that's not hard, right? And it's actually like, okay, segue to the book, right?
Yeah,
We wrote this book, right? How to have the best fight of your life. And we wrote it essentially because we're like, we just have the same conversation all the time and we can only meet with so many people in a lifetime.
Yeah.
And we need to get this information out to democratize it as much as possible, right? Because like it is actually like, it's very predictable what people do wrong, right? There's a whole chapter of like, it's just, I think it's just called, seriously, you're making it worse or something. And the reason we made it that is, or titled it that, was because people predictably do the exact same things when they're in the middle of a fight, when they're in the middle of a conflict, that always make it worse. And it's always usually like it mostly comes from a good place, right?
Yeah.
Like it's people are trying to make it better. They're trying to get their partner to feel better. They're trying to clarify. They're trying to give information, but it's a lot of times more of like a sequencing problem. Like people cannot hear what you're saying until they feel heard and understood. Like they cannot integrate any new information until they feel like you get where they're coming from or what they've experienced. And there are some really practical ways to like communicate with someone that says like, I hear you, I see you, I get it.
Yeah.
Nothing I'm going to say like in response to this is going to take that away whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I get it. And that sucks, right? It's not, and like just teaching people some really basic skills around that, like it changes people's lives. Like it saves their marriages. It does all these things. And so being able to like slow people down and just be like, okay, when you're on this journey, you derail to the left here and it makes you hate your marriage. It's not your marriage, right?
Right.
It is like these really predictable steps that you're taking over and over and over again that just aren't serving your relationship. Yeah. So like, let's just take a look at it, and then here we're gonna like handhold you through. Here's what it looks like to fight well. Here's what it looks like to move through a conflict really well. So like you can have some kind of resolution. Close. Is that a little better? Can you hear me? Whoop. Okay.
Nailed it.
Great. So you can actually like feel understood and like your partner gets it, which is usually the main goal, right? And then you can come up with some solutions together. Yeah. But it's like people just kind of hit their head up against the wall for a long time. And then they're like, this isn't working. We're stuck. We don't know what to do. Right. And so it's fun to come alongside them and be like, okay, here is like, we're going to walk you through how this works and how to do this well. And now we want you to go enjoy your life.
Yeah. It's Steve and I are smirking at each other right now because, I was reading your book. We read most of your book, lots of pieces of it. And there's a point where it's like, one of the skills that I really need to develop is like when he needs space, I can't be like, what's wrong? Like following. And it's like, and you gotta, I've learned through my therapy is like, I'm very codependent. I've been working on it for over a decade. It's not a simple thing to break. Like, and, but I was reading to him the part of like, and sometimes you need to stop following your partner or what, like, the part of the book of like, and I'm reading it out. He's like, I've been saying that for years. And like, it was a fun little moment for us. Cause it was like, as I was reading, he's like, I've been saying that. And like, it was really funny. And then what I was just kind of skimming through it before you came. And I really like the part of like, there's not a right and wrong. There's not a like, you need to understand my point. And then you guys y'all do a really good job of like connecting, like making really good stories make sense of like, 6 blind men touch an elephant and they're going to describe it in a totally different way. And it's just like coming at conflict like that. That's so, we've been married 10 years and a lot of our fights are literally the same. Yeah. And it's just like, it's almost like habit too with your partner of like, okay, now we're frustrated. And so here's how this goes. But I think that y'all did a really good, like a good job of like depicting like how to break that cycle, even just in the book. Yeah. And it's a quick read.
Like, it's a quick read. It's meant to be like a very like user-friendly like how-to guide of like, here's the quick and dirty of how to get through this well. Not rocket science. You can do it. And so the story about the elephant is essentially just like there's 6 blind men. They go and they're tasked with figuring out what an elephant is like, right? No one's ever seen it, so they're in charge of it. And so they come back and they all report different parts of the elephant that they experienced, right? One's like, oh, it's like a spear. No, one's like, oh, no, it's like a trunk. No, it's like a wall. No, it's like a fan, right? They're all touching different parts of the elephant, right?
Yeah.
And then they spend their whole life fighting about what the elephant was really like. And we find that couples waste so much time fighting about what really happened, or that's not what I really meant, or no, you're overreacting. It's not that big of a deal. Where a lot of times we're just at really different parts of the elephant.
Yeah.
Right. And so the amount of times I will look at my husband and go, wow, we're at really different parts of the elephant on this.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's like, it's almost a joke at this point in our family. Cause like there are so many, like I can remember recently, I've told you I have 3 kids, and recently my son was having, he's 5. He was having a normal toddler or normal tantrum.
Yeah.
And my side of the elephant, I was like laser focused for days. Like, I'm going to focus on being like strong and disciplined and boundaried, and I'm going to really help this little dude out. And he just needs a little bit more consistency. He's going to do great. At the end of that day, right, I'm like 2 days into like hyper focusing on this one task that I had for my son. And then my husband comes in and he's like, you know what, babe, like, I really think what Manu needs is just for you to be a little bit, I think you should start having better boundaries with him. And I looked at him and I was like, oh my God, you and I are at really different parts of the elephant. Let's talk about it later, because I'm having a really different experience of the last couple of days than you are.
Yeah.
And like, it's not right or wrong, but you're seeing something that I'm not seeing, right? And I'm experiencing something that you can't see. Yeah. And like the only thing we can do is just talk about our experiences and like kind of make space for both of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. It's oh.
There you go. It's a beautiful picture.
Did you just chat GPT 6 blind men and an elephant?
No. Yeah.
The 7, the chat GPT, and it looks like they're trying to make the elephant blind too.
It does.
AI these days.
It's almost right.
It's almost.
It's always almost right.
Yeah, they're really bad at fingers. I don't know if you've ever noticed.
Oh no, I have not.
Yeah, it's funny to watch. But no, so marriage is a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was with a client the other day. We were doing reviews, and he's like, this kid's 20. I shouldn't say kid. This young man is 22 years old. He just got back from his honeymoon, and he's like so in love and so just like on cloud 9. And he's a really positive kid anyway, and just like has such a good outlook on life. And in his review, they were like, one of the questions was like, how are things going in general? And he's like, work is great, whatever. And then he gets to this point, he's like, I got a really cool freaking wife. And like literally in his review, and like it
amazing.
Was all of us, management and the owners of the company, we were sitting there, and like it was such a beautiful moment of like, I remember when we got married, and like the whole world's ahead of you, everything's great, you're so aligned, like you just had the best moment of your life, marriage, honeymoon, the whole 9. And then it gets, marriage is beautiful, but it's also hard, and it takes a lot of effort every day. I don't know, effort, just care. It needs care. Like just like any friendship or marriage, or like or relationship or whatever, but like marriage especially. And of course there's gonna be a conflict. It'd be weird if there wasn't, right?
Oh man, I do not trust people when they say we don't fight ever. I'm like, one or both of you is just not being honest. That's all that it is. Or one of you is just so checked out it doesn't matter. Like that is the only way you don't have conflict in a marriage.
Like apathy, it just is. Right? Like
you're just like, whatever, apathetic. I don't care. Right. And so I don't trust those people. I always truly actually feel, as a therapist, I feel most worried for people when they come like to me in that sense, like, oh, everything's like, we don't fight, it's fine, which they don't, it's more of like in my personal life. When I hear that, I'm like, oh, ooh.
Like, let me take off my therapist hat really quick.
Yeah.
Like, so
have another glass of wine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but and that's what's really fun about our work too, is that like that exciting, like just over the moon place, like it's a beautiful place to be, but it's also like something you have to cultivate. Like you're gifted it in the beginning, right? And then it's something you have to cultivate and tend over a lifetime with someone,
right? And
like in any 2-person relationship, right, there's 3 people that have to be cared for, right? It's each one of you and then your relationship. And if you don't tend to all of those, it's not going to go well, right? So like as life happens, right? Like, I mean, truly conflict is absolutely inevitable, right? That's one of the things we talk about in the book. Like it's inevitable, but like falling out of love is not inevitable. Like that's a skills issue, right? Whereas like falling in love and being in love is about feeling seen and understood and feeling like you do the work to get to that place, right? And that's a skills problem. If you're not there, it's very, very seldomly like a heart issue. Like that's a skills issue that's like, you have to build in the skills into your life that's like, I know how to like keep my cool, not chase my partner around the house, like not lose my shit when like I'm upset about something, like not try to fight when I'm like seeing red, like do all these things so that you can be like, okay, how do I care for this like relationship in a way that like makes us more successful, makes us more in love, right? Because usually we just kind of do whatever we grew up doing or whatever our kind of survival instincts are, right? When we get really upset or scared or whatever. Yeah. And so to like pull that back and really like lean into like some like, I don't know, just some like understanding of like there's a beautiful way to move about a marriage and to care for it. Yeah. And it's not rocket science. It's usually just skills. Yeah. And skills we can teach. That's not hard. Yeah. Right? Like that's the easy part.
And it feels like, even just my experience with therapy is like going through when you learn the skill or you're like moving through a skill or you're even talking about it, in theory, it seems so simple, but then you add emotion to it and it can be impossible. Yeah. Like even if you know the skill and you've practiced the skill, one thing might it's hard. And it's amazing how I've learned there's a little girl inside of me that needs to be cared for and listened to and all of these things. And when she's scared, me as the adult can say like, oh, we're good. Like, we got
you're
this.
You're a good girl. Like, I got you.
I got you. Like if I could go back to Nicole at, I don't know, 5, 6, 12 years old and give her a hug, and but we can do that as adults. But it's so hard when you're in conflict with your most trusted person that you love more than anything in the world. You feel hurt, you feel scared, you feel all of these things. And then it's just like all skills go out the window. Yep. And I'm sure that like even the best of therapists or people with the best therapy, like you're not going to fight perfect every time.
Oh no. My husband and I have a solid like 50%.
Okay.
Like we are at like a good 50%. And honestly, I was wanting to do some revisions to the book, even though it just came out. But one of the things I wanted to add was like, you will never do this 100%. Like that is not the goal. Right. The goal is the 50% of the time you lose your shit and you chase them around the house and you do whatever. And like you say something unkind or you're short. The 50% of the time you don't do it well, you can pull back and be like, oh shit, like I love this person. I know how to do this. Like, let me try again. Like the amount of times I come to my husband and I'm like, I'm sorry about that. Like, yeah, I was definitely being an asshole. Like, I lost my shit. I shouldn't have like, been so curt with you. Like, can we try again? Yeah. Like, and that's the beauty. Like the goal is not perfection. Like, I mean, I feel like 50% is killing it personally. Like,
totally. Yeah.
Like when something comes up and like, sometimes we do it well and then sometimes we don't. And it's like, okay, how do we circle back? Okay, when we circle back, what was happening for you? What was happening for me? Yeah. How do we need to problem solve? Sometimes yes, sometimes no, right? But just like kind of having that understanding and like it's almost like knowing the path, even though like you can't always take it. Sure. Like that's not possible.
Sure. Yeah, and it would probably go back to like, oh, we read your book and we follow and we're perfect every time now. Everything's great.
Yeah, and they'd be like, liar.
Red flag. Do we need to go through boot camp again?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually been the fun part of doing the like the couples intensives is that like my business partner, she'll meet with people individually and like do the skills piece of it. And then I meet with them as a couple and we work through stuff in real time. Oh, cool. So like whatever they're learning, we are walking through how to fight, how to set boundaries, what that looks like, where they got off track. And then they're able to reach out to us in between sessions. Cool. Because usually what happens is like you see your therapist, you on your drive home, that's when the shit hits the fan, right?
Sure.
And then it's like, okay, I'll see them in 2 weeks. Like, we really like to be able to, what we just call like catching the bullet, where it's like, as you know, before it makes impact, call me. I'm going to yell at you if you don't, right?
Right.
And like, I'm going to help walk you through this, so that like, almost like you can be on a really fast clip in the direction you want to go, because you can't do it well, especially not at the beginning, right? And so having that kind of real time in between session support has been like actually really crucial for like getting people where they want to be quickly.
I love that. And so when you say that like shit hits the fan when they leave, like when they leave couples therapy, is that when?
Yeah, or just like it, like a lot of times in kind of more traditional couples therapy, right? It's like when they leave, then it's like everything unfolds. I can't believe you said this.
Yeah, like on the drive home. That's what you mean.
Yeah.
So then, and so what you're saying is you and your partner being in this concierge type situation where you're able to catch that before, because I would imagine that you're in a really raw place. Some probably very vulnerable things were said on both sides, one side, whatever.
Yep.
Where you're just feeling like accosted almost, like just like, whoa, this was just like
this is overwhelming. This is a lot. And so, you know, myself or my business partner can hop on a call, even just briefly, to be like, okay, here's what's happening. We got you. Do we need your partner to hop on to just kind of troubleshoot to get through the next day? And so people really do walk away feeling really held in like a pretty sensitive, vulnerable time.
Yeah. I mean, it's your everything. It's your marriage. It's your spouse.
It's your family. It's your life. Like, it's a thing that you're like, this is what I want when I grow up. And
Yeah. And it's such a nuclear like issue.
Yeah.
In all senses of the words, and the word, and like, so is your partner? So she does the individual therapy. Like, is she's not like? Well, tell me the difference of like you go into therapy for working with individuals. You chose to work with couples. Like, what is that journey like? Deciding,
just like in general as a therapist. You know, it's a little bit different for everybody. For me, when I was in college, my parents got divorced, and it like rocked my world. Right. And like I went and saw a therapist, and it was such a grounding, healing place for me. Yeah. It sounds very cheesy, but it was very clear, like, oh, this is what I want to do for people. Awesome. Like, this is the thing for me. Yeah. So I was the weird, like 22-year-old therapist who like, you know, went to grad school right afterwards. And
cool. You just knew.
Yeah. I was like, this is what I want to do. Right.
Love it.
And I don't think that is the case for everybody.
Sure.
But that's been the case for me. Okay. So, and my business partner, she is a couples therapist. She does couples therapy, but she's also really good at being able to like help people figure out individually where they've kind of lost themselves and what they need to do next. And so she's really good at like the teaching and the coaching on that end.
Love it. And you were saying there's three people that need to be, or entities, I guess, that need to be nourished, which is each other and then the relationship. So she's helping each other.
Yeah. So she can like advocate for the individual while I work with the couple and like advocate for what they need. And so like it's great to be able to sort of be seen and cared for from like all angles.
Yeah. And it's got to be fascinating for your work just to like, it's got to just be like from just your point of view, understanding from your partner like what each person's going through separately. Do you think that deepens the ability for, because I'm sure y'all are talking about
like,
all this
all day, like every day,
secrets about like, oh, the individual stuff is separate.
No, not at all. And that's like the beauty of it, is that like we're able to get such a like more like contextual understanding of what's happening for each individual sort of behind the scenes and what happens when they show up together. And so we're like always on the phone talking, basically.
That's awesome. Can I ask, this might be a really dumb or very inappropriate question, so just like don't answer it if it's like not okay. But like I would imagine that you guys are working with, or you're working with couples, and do you ever, is it hard to not side with one or the other, or is that like, is that the clinical, like we can't side? It's just, as a human, like how do you not side with one person or the other?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And I honestly, I think that is part of the work on my end, is like to not be overly aligned with each person, with either person, right? And honestly, like it's easy in the sense that like everybody plays a role in like co-creating whatever's happening, right? Sure. I mean, there are a few like, you know, more extreme exceptions,
Sure,
right?
of course.
But ultimately, like, there is power in every position that a couple is in, right? In each part of it. Like, I was telling someone the other day, like, you know, they were like, you know, they were struggling to like accept some blame, right? They like really didn't want to be blamed for X, Y, and Z. And I was just like, hold up, like being able to hold some blame here is like the most wonderful thing you have going for you right now, right? Because if you can't accept any blame, you don't have any power to do anything different, right?
Yeah.
Like, it assumes that like you have no part in what's happening,
Right.
and so you can influence nothing, right?
Yeah.
And so like bring on the blame. Like, if you want to change this, if you want to be an active part in it, like, let's talk about each person's piece in this. And so it's easy in the sense that like I feel like I can really clearly see that like a lot of these dynamics are co-created, right? Even positions that people don't want to be in, right?
Sure, of course.
There's often like what's called like a overfunctioner, underfunctioner dynamic, right? Where it's like one person is like overly responsible or like always like, you know, checking on things for the other person that they don't really need to be, or like making them lunch, or like making sure they make it to the doctor, or like, honey, did you go to the gym, or like, oh, did you pick up our blah, 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 right? Like, just overly responsible. And the other person tends to sort of function less optimally, right?
Yeah.
They're almost like a teenager in the relationship. And it's really easy to like give the underfunctioning partner a lot of shit about like, why don't you just step up? Why don't you just do whatever? Right.
Right.
But like, that is such a symbiotic dynamic.
Oh, yes.
Right. And so it's like, you know, so in that sense, it's easy to not overly align. Right.
Right.
With one or the other. Cause like, I can see really clearly, like, whoever's underfunctioning here, whoever's playing the teenage role, they, even if they're like have some benefits, it is so demoralizing to be treated like a child by your partner.
Yeah.
You know? And so like no one loves what's happening here, right? And so
on all sides, because no one wants to be mom or dad to their spouse
no,
either.
it's like
that's
the
not
least sexy
I was
thing
just saying,
ever.
It's not hot.
No,
like
not
at all. Like no one's trying to. No, that's
Anytime people like make comments where they're like, "Oh yeah, like my wife is." You know, and more so like on the internet, right? Where they're like, oh, they're like, they take care of everything and like they blah, 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 and they kill it. I'm like, they do not want to have sex with you. That's what, if I don't know anything else about you, that's what I know.
Yes.
And because it's like, it's not hot to take care of someone else. Like, it's just not. And so,
okay, so like in that sense, and I think it's, I don't know if this is like generational or just where we are as a people as a whole, but like there's gender defined roles that we naturally fall into as male and female. If we're talking about a male and female
heterosexual
couple, right?
couple.
Yeah. I grew up in the household of my grandma and my mom, and on both sides, like laundry, dishes, cooking food. You take this like women tend to take this like nurturing role in the relationship that kind of like, and then I would assume that when you have children, that we don't have children, but that like
it's like tenfold.
Yeah. So now you're like, of course you're cooking dinner. Of course you're doing all the laundry. Things need to get done. Dad and mom's also probably working, maybe or maybe not, whatever. But I'm sure that there's a dynamic there.
Yeah.
And then dad goes to work, husband goes to work. Come so tired. Like there's so many skits, TikToks, shorts like about this situation.
It's like every sitcom ever.
So yeah, exactly. So like how do you, when wife or mother or the person in this role, maybe I shouldn't even gender out like put gender
yeah, sometimes
to it,
it's totally flipped.
yeah,
like,
whoever's in the role of like caretaker, nurturer, and that just like the role, like the normal roles of how the life has rolled out. Like how can you guys kind of help untie that? And
yeah, I mean, that is something that happens with every single couple that we work with.
Okay.
Like literally every single couple. Like that's the that's basically like the first task of working with any couple is, and like the way that we try to frame it is like, it's because essentially it's a boundaries issue, right? And so if you think about it, like, you know, think about it as if like everybody has their own backyard garden. Okay. So, you know, you have yours, your partner has theirs, your children have theirs, right? It's like everyone has their own. So a lot of times what happens is like we sort of leave our backyards and go into other people's, right? To take care of their garden, to take care of what's going on for them, to like make sure everything's okay over there, to overfunction in their space in the world, however we've kind of divvied up life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm going to do your laundry and get the snacks and do all the things and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I'm going to like make sure we have friends, and I'm going to make sure your mother has a gift, and I'm going to do whatever, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And then those, like, basically what happens is like their own garden is completely just dead, right?
Yeah.
Just nothing left, nothing at all, right? And so, and then like you get a lot of, you know, typically women, but sometimes men who are just like exhausted, depleted. They don't want to have sex. They don't feel excited. They just feel like, you know, kind of like a dirty dish towel, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like that's a normal reaction to not like tending to your own garden and not entrusting the people in your life to tend to theirs in some capacity, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of work to like undo those norms, because you're right, it's like generations, I mean, it's like millennia deep, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was probably way more functional at another time in the world than it is now.
Right.
But now it's not, it's for the most part, it's not necessary, right? Maybe there was a time where it was like evolutionary, like necessary. Yeah. We are not there anymore.
Right. Right.
And also like your grandparents weren't having a lot of sex. Your parents probably weren't having a lot of sex, or like happy and joyful and like full of life and excitement.
Right.
And so, you know,
you are correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is wild. Like it's just, it's so deep. It's so deep that like each individual person has their own story and their own trauma and their own baggage, and then you find the person that like you align with when you're dating, and you do all of these things, and you get married, and then now you're like married, and like it's tricky. It's tricky.
It's like a whole, like you jump into something and then you're like, well, now I'm here, and then like all of this historical stuff just starts to unfold in front of you, and it takes a lot of good conversation and like personal insight to like be like, oh, this is where I'm naturally headed. Do I want to be there? Do I want to go there?
Yeah.
If not, what are we going to do? Right. If my partner wants things to be a certain way and I don't, what do we do? Right. And then it's like having that, like working through that piece of it. And honestly, like I'm actually a big proponent of fighting in general. Like, because I'm like, if you're not talking about it, if you're not dealing with it, like it's just going to like push you in a direction that you don't probably want to be at. Right. And even if you do, it's going to be total luck of the draw. Right.
Sure.
And so like being able to like work through things together, it's a very like emotionally intimate process.
Yeah.
If you do it well. Right.
Yeah.
And then you're much more likely to like have the things you want in life and enjoy them. And so like my husband and I fight a lot, and I don't feel bad about it at all.
Yeah.
Like not at all. Like even my daughter who's 8 the other day, we were, you know, I'm sure we were fighting getting out the door probably about absolutely nothing. Right. We were just like, you know, wear the son's shoes, like, you know, just life stuff. And I could tell my daughter had picked up on it, and she was a little uneasy. And, you know, and she's older, right? And, I mean, she's 8, but she's older, and she's very like emotionally like attuned to her world, very much like an oldest kid. And she gets in the car and she's kind of a little bit sheepish. And I'm like, what's up, babe? And she's like, I didn't like you and Dad fighting, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay. And Matt had jumped in the car with me, and I was like, hey, Matt, like Amelia's feeling kind of uncomfortable that we were fighting. And he was like, oh. And we had to be like, listen, like it is totally like we kind of lost our patience with each other. Like I get that. And we can be mindful of that and work on that, especially when y'all are around. But like fighting through things is like a normal, healthy part of a life together. Like, because Daddy needs to know what I think. Like, Mommy needs to know what Daddy thinks. Like, and we got to figure out how to build a life that we want. And she was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, and I was like, we're happy because we fight through things and we like get to the other side. And she was like, that makes no sense.
Well, it is like a complicated concept to grasp, right? Like, for a kid. Well, and then I think, again, we don't have children, but they're going, your daughter's going to school, they're talking to friends, like, and at 8, I'm sure like they're talking about like home and like, I don't know, like some people are okay with sleepovers, some people aren't, whatever. But like they're talking about home and they're discussing their experiences with life, and mom and dad are huge when you're that age, like all of these things. So it's almost like, I don't know, I'm assuming, but that like there's a comparison of like, oh, my parents are getting divorced at many stages of children's lives. Like there's got to be more than just like, they're just taking in so much information from so many sources. Yeah. And then their little brains are like very complex brains are trying to
kind of tease it all out.
Yeah, like it's tricky.
Yeah. And like, although I don't love losing my patience in front of my kids, like not my favorite, not like my proudest moment for sure.
Yeah.
And like, it's actually, in hindsight, it's kind of nice that like she's able to experience us at like a very prickly moment with each other, and then still be able to like, for us to acknowledge it and be like, we're good, girl. Like, we love each other. Your mom is obsessed with your dad. We're good. Like, we just lost our patience. We can totally be mindful of that. But like, know that like the experience you're having in your body, that is okay. Like that level of stress, like it doesn't mean anything bad. Yeah. Right. And so that like when my hope is like she grows up, she gets into the world, she finds someone she loves.
Of course.
That like she doesn't crumble in a moment when there's a tension like that she can kind of hold her own and be like, I remember in my body somehow that this level of stress is okay.
Yeah.
And like, I'm going to be okay. And we can keep fighting about it and we can get through the other side. Yeah.
Yeah. As an adult, she goes back to that 8-year-old little girl and be like, we're good.
We're good, girl.
We know how to get through this. This is fine. And I grew up in a situation where my parents did not fight fair. They did not fight kind. It was
like, it can be very ugly.
Yeah. And like, that's a different, you're learning skills and you're absorbing information as a young child early. And what's the right way to, not the right way, but what's the way that you've been exposed to these things. And so as people have children, it is really fun to like watch our friends have kids and our nephews and like with like this whole thing of just being like, everything you do around a kid, they're absorbing, like it good or bad to them. It's just input.
Yep.
And it's like, there's such a responsibility.
Yeah. They're like encoding all of it in their like little brains of like, oh, when I do this is okay. When I do this, like everyone freaks out. Like that must mean something, blah, blah, blah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. I would imagine in couples therapy, like children, I'm sure change the game for people.
For sure.
I mean, obviously, but like, is that a huge inflection point for some people?
Like whether or not to have children?
Once they have children.
Oh.
Like just.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so hard. Like, again, we don't have kids, but these little buddies that come stay with us every once in a while, it's like crazy.
It is the most upending experience of anybody's life, probably. Yeah. Any like normal experience that people have. Yeah. And again, like I'm obsessed with my husband. I think he is wonderful. And after we had our daughter, I was like, we're definitely not going to make it. Like, like this is not going well. We are definitely going to get divorced. But it's so hard. It is so hard for so many reasons. Yeah. And it's like, you have 100% more stuff to do and responsibilities. And, all of that like you were saying earlier, like all that historical who does what when and what you are kind of okay with and what you believe, like all of that comes to the forefront. And, and even like one thing I noticed too is like my mom did a lot more for us, like a lot of women in that in that time. And I remember her like frustration and anger with my dad over it. And it was like I inherited it in some weird way. And it was like, sometimes I was like, is this really happening for me? Or is this just like my mother's anger that's showing up? Like, I don't even know what's happening. And I'm too hormonal to figure it out. And like, I'm just tired and my boobs hurt. Like, it was like a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And so it was really like, it's so disorienting.
Yeah. I can't even imagine.
I mean, it is so disorienting. And so after there's all this research out that's like marital satisfaction like drops dramatically once you have children and then goes back up when they go to college.
Oh, that's just like 18 years of like
or once they're out of the house. But like I will say that I think that is, it's in part, it's like anything though. When there's any sort of like fissures in a relationship, right? Any increased stress makes it like so much worse, right? And I think that's really the case for like when people have children, like whatever stress fractures were already there, the stress goes up so much, and like just the logistics and the whatever, like it is all of that just comes front and center.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's really important. Like a lot of couples that we work with have kids, and
I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. And a big portion of that is like, how do you like manage things in a household well so that people aren't resentful, and it's not like mom's doing everything or dad's doing everything or whatever. Like that is a huge part of our work of just like running family like a business. Like you really do have to run it like a business. Otherwise it just doesn't work. Like, you know, we always tell people like you have to have an admin meeting with your spouse every single week. It's non-negotiable. You have to do it. Like imagine you run a business with your husband, right? Imagine running a business with him and not having 1 hour's worth of administrative work together during your whole week. Your business would fall apart instantly, right? Like and then people are like, oh, yeah, like there is, you know, you don't talk about all these things that need to get done. I mean, there's like a million logistics, especially when you have children.
Right.
Actually, I have a friend who recently got pregnant, and she's really good at logistics. And I was like, parenting is all logistics. You're going to do great. Like,
yeah. You're like,
I'm not worried about you at all.
Yeah.
Because it's so many logistics, right? But, you know, if basically like if you're not having that meeting and things just get done randomly, what it really means is somebody's taking care of all the shit. And then they're mad at their partner.
Right. Like the resentment will
the resentment comes. It's just getting done means you're oblivious. Your partner's getting everything done and they're mad at you. Right. Is really what that means.
I had someone, I was chatting with a girlfriend of mine. This was a few years ago. And she was just like, she was so, and it's like, after some time, it's so wild when like the littlest things are not little anymore. And she's like, he just must think that the LaCroix that he likes to drink ends
just
up in
magically
the fridge.
Shows up. Yeah.
Yeah. Like shows up and gets put where it's always like it's got to go. Like someone has to get it. Someone has to put it in the fridge. Someone, you know, all the things. And like, how does he think there's no box that it came in? How does he think it's cold all the time? And I remember her just being like so frustrated.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's such a
tiny little thing,
but it's not.
Yeah.
Right. Like it is, but it's not. Where you're just like, you know, and she's like, he never thanks me for putting the LaCroix in the fridge. You know, like he doesn't even acknowledge that I do it. And you know, like I think it's so healthy to like get together with your girlfriends or, you know, your guy friends or whatever, or just your friends to talk about. It's good to vent. I don't know how. I don't know. I'm no therapist. Like, but I always find it very
Venting's
helpful.
Great. I love a good venting session.
Yeah, like especially someone who gets it, you know. And I just remember like sitting there with her and being like, girl, I know, like, and that's just part of any relationship. I'm sure that her boyfriend, they're now married. Her boyfriend at the time, so they're fine. Their boyfriend at the time was like, it's the same thing. I know Steve with me sometimes. It's like, how do you not know that this is happening? Like, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm just some dumb bitch over here, just, you know, doing whatever I do. Like, but the same for him is like, you know, and I think it is hard. And as years go into relationships, like, I think it's easy to just assume that you understand your partner, but like a lot of times you don't. And people are constantly changing.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. And like, I think the beautiful thing about it, because I'm thinking of like 1,000 like examples of that too, where I'm like, oh my God, like there's so many things that I do that like Matt can't see. And like, there's so many things he does that like, I have no idea about. But like the beauty of like, almost like there's the way that I think about emotions is actually like emotions at the end of the day are like this beautiful gift you have to listen to or you're totally fucked. Like that's just all there is to it.
Yeah.
And so like if you think about like if you were on a boat out at sea and you saw a compass and your compass was like telling you like, hey, like you were way off course, no one would be like, bring me a fucking hammer. Like, this is not working for me. Like, let's get this out of here. This is not working. Like, I don't like what this is saying to me.
Right.
But we do that with emotions, right? It's like we feel an emotion and then it's like, okay, how do I get this? Like,
away. How
do I get this feeling to go away?
Yeah.
Not like, what is this feeling trying to tell me? And how do I need to course correct so that I'm back on course? Right.
Yeah.
And like that, like, it's like what you're saying, like the LaCroix or like the whatever it is, right? whatever comes up, it's more of like, can you listen to that and have a conversation, fight through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, whatever it is, and then get back to a good place, right? And like, you're always going to have those little things, but it's like, can you notice it in yourself, talk about it, feel understood? You're building that intimacy piece of it. And then like, you know, life goes on and you just, it's like the skill you get good at over time, right?
Yeah.
And like, I think the fun thing about this too is like, you know, there's like a difference between like process and content, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like content's like insert whatever is going on at every different stage of life. It's the content is always new,
Mm-hmm.
but like the process, if you can get a really good process down, you can feel really confident that like, no matter what happens, like we know, like no matter like how much I lose my shit or the 50% of the time I don't do the fight well, like I know the process to get back to the person I love, right? And like that feels really good, and to like get back to a good place with them. And there's something kind of beautiful about like having that confidence. It's like, I know the process, and even if I don't always do it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it when you're dealing with emotions and people and someone else and their emotions and their processing power and your processing power, like to have a plan, it's always like in any part of life, like to have a plan, like get back to the plan, get back to like what you know is right. And I think your book really does a good job of like explaining the process. Like follow this process as much as you can. Yeah. And even if it's not 50%, that's okay. Like
totally okay.
Like start, give it a shot, you know? If anyone wanted to work with you all, what is the best way to contact you? How would you suggest people reach out if they feel like they need help?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our website is austincouplesconcierge.com. So you can go there, get in touch with us there. We're also on Instagram, just Austin Couples Concierge or Jess Worthington ATX.
Awesome.
Yep.
And if they want to buy your book?
It's on Amazon.
That's where we got it.
Yeah, it's on
Went to Amazon, purchased it, followed Steve around while we were in the middle of a fight, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was being aggressive or trying to be funny and lighten the mood, but I literally followed him around while we were having some dumb fight. And I was like, this says I shouldn't be following you around, but I can't help it.
Yeah.
His garage door doesn't really hold in sound.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're right across from
The park.
Mailboxes in the park where people walk. So
I'm sure our neighbors know a lot about us.
Yeah.
Our fights tend to be in the garage.
Oh, okay.
And
you have like some mats down.
Yeah, there's some mats, there's some curtains in there for some other reasons, but no, I'm sure Nob Hill knows us well.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's a fun marriage is fun, and I think overall it's just like an excellent experience, and I highly recommend marriage to the right person.
Same.
When you're respected and feel safe and all of those things. Like marriage is good. When last question on your business, and then we'll move forward. This has been fascinating. I've loved it. At what point should a couple reach out to you?
That's a great question. People usually reach out too late.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're thinking about it, you should just do it.
Okay, fair enough.
So like the times when it's really hard to make there is I've had moments for people where I'm like, for one of you, it's too little too late.
Oh no.
And that sucks, because that wasn't always like that, you know, and people really drag their heels sometimes, but sometimes someone is just so done.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't always that way. And I'm always like, God, I wish I could go back in time and just be like, just make the fucking phone call. Like, it's not that big of a deal. The amount of times I hear people say, like after a first session, like, and this has been forever, they go, oh, okay, that wasn't actually that bad. Because there's a lot of anxiety and stress. Like it takes a while to call someone. And I think the thing I would say is like, if you're feeling stuck, like, I know it's supposed to be better, I can't figure out how to get there. That's a sign like someone knows how to help you get there, right? Like, you know, we don't get sick and we're like, well, I guess I'm just sick, right? Like we call someone, we do something, we, you know. And so, I mean, I would say like, you know, the golden rule is like if you're feeling stuck, or if your partner ever asks, it's non-negotiable. Like you just go. Right? Yeah. If your partner ever says, hey, I think we should go to therapy, or I want to go to therapy, it's not a question. Like you need to go, because what they're saying is, I can't get somewhere with you. Yeah. We need someone's help.
Yeah. That was just going to be my next question to you, is like, if your partner is like unwilling, or maybe you're scared to ask your partner, like, what do you think if someone in a relationship is feeling like they want to go to couples therapy, but they're unsure based on how stuck they are or whatever, that they want to bring that up? How would you suggest them bringing it up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would just say like, hey babe, like I love you and I really care about our marriage. And like, I feel like we need some help. My husband has said that to me. Like as a couples therapist, he comes to me and is like, we need help.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, I wrote this rule that said you have to go. So I guess we're going.
Yeah.
And so I would say, yeah, if anybody asks, like, it's just a like 100% yes.
You just go.
You just go. It's not a question.
Excellent. Is it hard for you to not look at couples and be like, oh?
Not at all,
Okay.
because like I've gotten really good at like, when I'm not working, my brain is just in such a different place. And so no, not at all.
Excellent. And actually that brings me back to one thought that you were saying earlier, that like all your stuff is virtual, but then if you see someone in the wild, you're like, oh, I know you. I think it's comforting for people to know that like, even though it's the center of your world right now, and like they're not your world, their world, that y'all aren't. You're talking about it clinically.
Yeah.
You're not. There's no gossip. There's no like,
Not
oh my
at
god, I
all.
can't believe this is this bad or crazy.
No.
Like you literally file it in your filing
By the way,
cabinet.
you don't remember it. I'm all about like chasing my kids and running around and having fun with friends, and like it does not exist in my brain.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I think people think that way, right? Like you're going into a vulnerable situation. You're about to talk about some very intimate things with a person that you really don't know at first. And you're like, they've got to be thinking about this. Like,
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You're
You know,
not.
it's funny. So I just, I was recently meeting with a business coach that we have. And I was telling my husband, I was like, I feel weirdly anxious about it. Like, I almost feel like I'm about to be really vulnerable with like, and he was like, think about all the things your clients tell you, and you don't remember any of them in any significant capacity outside of that session. Like it's not like something that's lingering around for you.
Yeah.
And so think about how much courage like your clients have to come to you to talk about these things.
Yeah.
And he was basically like, don't be a little bitch about it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
he was like, you got this. Like, don't worry about it. Like, you are fine. Just like, it's normal to feel vulnerable in that place.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I was like, oh, like this is probably a fraction of what people feel sometimes.
Yeah.
But also like, there's nothing here whenever like I'm seeing like in my real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good to know. Because
Yeah.
it is a scary thing.
Yeah.
You know, there's
Yeah.
a real anxiety to therapy and any kind of therapy.
Yep.
And that like just knowing that like you have your filing cabinet, when the session's done, you file it
It's
away.
totally done.
And then you've got probably 8 more that day that you get to meet with. Like
Yeah.
you're not thinking, which is great. And you do feel you have a very safe presence to you.
Yeah.
Like you're very warm. I'm sure your partner's the same way. Like
She's
this is why
great.
you're
Yeah, yeah.
working with her. Let's move on to, we live in a really cool neighborhood
We do.
called Easton Park.
I love this neighborhood. It's amazing.
We live in too. What neighborhood are you in?
I live in Skyline.
Beautiful. Skylines. I get lost over there all the time.
Really?
Still. Yeah. Like it's just like it's big.
It is big.
It's cool.
Yep. We live right across from Skyline Park, so it's really nice.
Lucky.
Yeah,
duck.
yeah, I know.
That's
Yep.
such
Very
a
lucky.
Cool. Although we were just talking to Evan earlier about the park, and it was like I feel that park was not made for children. It is such a scary like there's a lot of like high places they could fall out of, like
Yeah.
the wood, the stuff.
It is
like,
hard to like keep an eye on your children. For me, I have 3 of them, so I'm always like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Like,
Yeah.
because it's just like there's lots of different places they can go, so it's a little stressful in that
Yeah.
sense. But
yeah, very cool.
I may or may not put
slide-
air tags on them when they go.
No judgment. That's actually a great idea.
It's amazing.
It's very smart.
Yeah.
The slide is awesome.
The slide is fun.
Gigantic. Our other favorite part of Easton Park is Sinizo.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a fan?
Big fan.
What's your
Went
order?
there today.
Yeah.
I always get a almond vanilla latte
Ooh, I haven't
and
done-
the brisket kolaches
okay.
because oh my god,
They're good.
they're amazing. Yeah, and I don't think they make them, but they source them from somewhere.
Yeah. That sounds. I haven't had the brisket kolache.
It's ridiculous.
And I haven't had an almond vanilla latte, but I do go, I'm like a vanilla latte with oat milk kind of a girl, or the mocha sometimes is really good, but I've been on a matcha kick. Their matcha's really,
Okay,
like,
is matcha sweet? No, okay.
but theirs is good.
Okay.
Matcha to me until Sinizo was like,
like
it just tastes like
chalky.
chalk.
That's all I
like,
think about. Yeah.
Gross. Not the case at all. It's
Okay.
very good. And it's like, I love a good caffeine kick, but the matcha's not as much, at least in my experience. Maybe it hits people different, but I like the matcha a lot. But I'm gonna try the almond vanilla latte.
I was loving the horchata latte. I think it was seasonal though. Maybe I was a big fan.
Yeah, I never ordered it. I was on a
delicious.
matcha kick back then. Like it was
Yeah.
just so good. Do you like iced or hot?
Hot always, no matter like how hot it is outside.
Really?
Yeah.
Steve's the
I just
same
want to sip
way.
it really slowly.
Okay.
I think I just want it to last like 2 hours.
I got you, Steve. No matter the temperature, he's like hot. He does the chai tea latte. Chai tea latte, is that what you get? Yep. Always hot, no matter like if it's 100 million degrees outside. But I'm like iced even when it's super cold.
Really? Okay.
I just like the iced. I don't know. I can drink it faster.
Yeah.
Get the input.
That's why I
of
don't
caffeine.
want it, because I'm like it doesn't go slow enough.
Yeah. Siniso's great. Okay, so you're across the street from the park. Who was your builder?
Pace setter.
Lovely.
I don't know why it took me so long.
Do you have a casita in the whole situation?
Yeah, we have like the model house, the original model.
Very cool.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
We love it.
Do you office out of one of the casitas or like?
I was out of we have a sitting room in there.
Very cool.
So
Have you, when family comes, do they stay in the little
yeah,
areas?
so we have family that stays in the casita.
Okay.
My niece actually lives upstairs.
Oh, cool.
And then I work out of the sitting room in like kind of like in between our bedroom and the bathroom.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool. If you had to add, or if you could add anything to Easton Park, what would you add?
God, that's such a great question. More pickleball courts.
Okay. Yeah, you were
Indoor
talking,
pickleball.
No, we were talking earlier. She's all about the pickleball. Like, it's excellent. You got to go to Bolden Acres.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna check it out. Someone recommended it to go this Sunday, actually.
Yeah,
so
go.
maybe I'll try it.
We went not to play pickleball. I think I told you we haven't gotten bit by that yet.
Okay,
but there's a guy in the neighborhood. His Andrew Marcus, very smart guy. He started a business when he was in college called My Tennis Lessons because he was a tennis guy. And now he has My Pickleball Lessons that you can find a pickleball coach.
That's adorable.
Online.
I love it.
He's like, he had funny things to say about it. He said it's like large ping pong.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So yeah.
It's like large, silly ping pong. I love it.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. We haven't tried, but we have gone to Bolden Acres for a networking event, and it was like serious. Like,
I mean, yeah, it is. People get wild about it. So,
yeah.
and there's like a professional pickleball league
what? Oh, yes. And
here in Austin. There's like one of the leagues.
No way.
Yep, I know this because my sister works there.
Are you going to
works for
get in
them.
on this?
Man, I have so much swag
No
coming
way.
my way. I'm very excited about it.
Okay. That's amazing. I love getting into something like that. It's really fun. It feels really healthy. New group of friends,
Yeah,
new group of
it's
like
great.
people. So cool. What do you think your favorite thing about Easton Park is?
You know, my favorite thing about Easton Park is that it's basically like a retirement community for families.
Yeah. Yeah.
Training, retirement. It's a training.
It's a training us. Yeah, I mean, I think the community aspect is so special. Like, I mean, it's just magical. And like on the snow day that we had, it was you know, there were people sending text messages back and forth, and then within like 30 minutes there was like, you know, I don't know, 20 families sledding in Discovery Park on like the saddest little like hill ever. But it was like we were all there for like 2 hours. Somebody
That's
brought
cool.
some whiskey at some point. Like it was a
Excellent.
great morning.
That's the best morning.
It was the best morning. And yeah, I mean, it just felt like there's always like the connection is just really nice.
Yeah, it's special. It feels
It's
really
very
special
special.
and very
Yeah.
unique. Snow day back 2020. When was the big snow? Or it was like snow?
I know
21?
exactly when it was. It was February 2021 because it was the day we were supposed to close on our house. It was that Friday.
Oh no!
And then they pushed it back 2 weeks. Yeah, and then we couldn't close.
2
So then they pushed
weeks.
it back 2 weeks. Yeah.
Brutal. That when it snowed like that, there's the hill we're
Mm-hmm.
Knob Hill and the hill that the trolley's on, and my office used to be in the front of the house, so I could see I could like look out and see the park. And I was like, I'd open my window, and that was like some of my favorite parts of the day. It was like watching the kids play and like do their thing. But on snow day, this kid was like out there with his dad, and he had a folding card table, like where like the legs come up or whatever, and he was sledding on the card table, like he was holding onto the legs and like going down the hill. And I remember just being like,
This is gonna end so
yeah,
badly.
bad. And it goes right to the street. Although no one was driving because but whatever. But it was just like, It was so fun to watch. And then there were people snowboarding and the whole nine. That was a really, that's it.
Yep. Oh, that's magical.
Yeah, it was cool. That was a fun. If you watch close enough, or if you could see it better, it was like you could see the table going down.
Yeah.
It's so funny. That was a really fun. I don't know. Fun. A lot of people were not in
Wasn't
good
fun for
time.
a lot of people. Yeah.
But in Easton Park, we all had power and heat and all of the things. I have to talk about the Easton Park Gazette.
Okay, great.
It's the newspaper. It fell, but let me just grab her really fast. Tim Andrew does it. He's excellent. He's a new real estate agent here in Easton Park. He's awesome. He's a killer. And if anyone, like, you should, I'll introduce you to him. You guys can put your services in here.
Amazing.
And he's all about that. And he's just been really, really cool about meeting with other entrepreneurs. And I think it's a really smart way for him to sell houses. It's different. When was the last time you opened a paper?
It's been a while. It's been a minute.
Cool. Oh, sorry. Yeah. When was the last time you opened a paper? It's just so very cool. Okay. Let's see. We're going to recap. What's ACC?
Austin Concierge.
Austin Couples Concierge.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So let's recap. If if anyone wants to reach out to you, where's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah. So if they just reach out at austincouplesconcierge.com, that's the easiest way to get in touch with us. Yep. You can fill out a form online and we'll get in touch.
Got it. Are you comfortable working with people in the neighborhood?
No.
Okay. No, that's fair.
Yeah. So, I haven't come across it, but okay. So a couple of good things. I haven't crossed that line yet.
Yeah.
So
it makes sense. It feels very close.
It's very close. But okay. So good thing though, we're actually coming out with, so we have this, basically when we meet with folks, we have this 8-week, it's almost like a Candyland thing. We're we're going to you got to start here and then we're going to work through these things and blah, blah, blah. We're actually going to start rolling out some courses that that are for a lot less expensive and it's sort of like a self-guided
smart
tour through that. And that's something anybody could access.
Okay.
So, but it is a very intimate process.
Yeah.
And mostly I think people feel uncomfortable.
Sure.
Right. But if you have a friend or
anyone,
a cousin or something that you feel like could benefit from some support, we'd be really happy. Also, if people are needing support, I mean, I've been in this field for 15 years and I know a lot of really good individual therapists, couples therapists, and I am happy to be the neighborhood therapist broker for people.
Excellent.
Because people need help.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important because you talked about running into people in the wild of and it
makes other people very uncomfortable
I'm sure
and
you're
nervous.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
But it's so vulnerable. Thank you so much, Jess. This has been amazing. We've talked about
so fun.
Yeah, it's been awesome. We talked about your practice and your book. And again, just in case people missed it, the best way to reach out to you is on your website.
Yep.
AustinCouplesConcierge.com. Excellent. And buy your book on Amazon.
Yep. Book on Amazon.
Just search for
so it's just how to have the best fight of your life.
Excellent. And if you can have the best fight of your life 50% of the time, you're doing excellent.
You're killing it.
Killing it. If you're doing it 20% of the time,
you're on your way.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a work in progress. I would imagine people ebb and flow, right? Sometimes fights can be if you and your partner are really working, it can be healthy. And then there's times where stress levels go up.
Yeah. And life and individual stress. And, there's times where work is stressful for me or work is stressful for my husband. And we are just not hitting that 50% mark. Yeah. And it's just all right, what's going on? you know?
Yeah. And that's life, right?
And that is life and that's normal. And I think the beautiful thing is truly feeling confident about I know how to find my way back to this person. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Thank you for joining us.
This has been great. Thank
you. Listeners, we will see you next time.
Fine walking into the